This episode of the Better 2 podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and DM Needham, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. Hi gang, Donna here. Thanks for tuning into the Better 2 Weekly Intuitive Podcast. Today's guest is Amanda Keith. This, as I talk about in the podcast, is our third time recording because we've had issues the past 2 times. So we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about her shop, and we talk about a different form of grief, and that's grief of giving up your dream. Sometimes we don't look at that. We just think of grief as losing a family member, losing a spouse, losing a friend, losing a pet. But we don't think about the grief of giving up on our dreams. And we talk about that. We talk about toxicity in relationships. We talk about when to say when, and also about labels and, well, a lot of other things, including going after things you want and following your dreams. So tune in and check it out. Okay, for all purposes, this is actually the third time that I am sitting down with Amanda to do this podcast. And yes, the first one we had technical issues. And the second one, well, something happened major shortly after we recorded. So we decided to do it again. So hello, Amanda, and welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I am okay. It's funny because I was thinking, and also you've changed your appearance since then, and it's all been just a big metamorphosis.
Yeah.
So, Amanda had, and she still has, kind of a shop called Three Crows Conjure, and we talked about this last time, and how she had finally gotten her dream together. Mm-hmm. She had finally had her vision a reality. You were really excited about it too, weren't you?
Oh, we were incredibly excited. Ecstatic, actually. And actually, the day before the big thing happened, we had gotten it exactly how we wanted it. Like, just perfect, to the T.
And then let's play tarot reader for a second, and then the tower came along.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the tower came along big time. On Mother's Day, I went out of town on that Friday. And then I came back and I knew something was wrong. Even though that was the day we had everything put together, I knew something was wrong. Mother's Day, that Sunday, get a call about 10 o'clock. Shop's on fire. And I'm like, what? And my first thing is we had a cat. We had a shop cat, and he was about 6 months old, named Voodoo. And he was our baby. Like, everybody loved him. I was like, oh my God, my cat. I got to get him out. Can we get him out? Is he okay? And I knew from that time, I was like, he's dead. He didn't make it. And then I'm thinking, okay, this has changed. But this really sucks because we had it exactly the way we wanted it. And we were ready to just start.
And I didn't mean to bring up this, but about making you sad. But here's the thing, and this is why I wanted to talk about this, is because when we look at grief, we only look at grief of a person or an animal. And while you're grieving Voodoo, there's a certain point in our life when we grieve our dreams, when we give up our dreams. And we never really mention those things. We just talk about, oh, well, I grew out of that. Or it just didn't work out. We never talk about how we actually feel about that.
Yeah, because honestly, I can tell you I'm angry because I feel like the rug was pulled out from underneath me. We built this, the store we didn't build, the place, but everything in it was ours. We took down walls, we painted, we put up shelves. Everything we did, we put in the work. And it's like, it's gone. And I'm like, well, and some days I'm good and I understand it. And the spiritual side of me gets to, be okay. And there's days where I don't want to go out. I don't want to do a thing. I'm mad. I'm sad. I'm hurt. Like, why did this have to happen? Why did I have to, and it's all of that. And at first I didn't know, like, as a society, I think we just like, okay, let's pick up and go.
Hmm.
You know, it definitely my upbringing. I was told to suck it up and let's, you know,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
military, old fashioned. Let's suck it up and move on. And that's really been my strategy. But Spirit's really been kind of putting me on a hold and going, you're going to deal with this because you're not repeating this again.
And that's the thing. I think you need to face it, and we don't always do it. It's so much easier to keep moving along and trying to put on that brave face. You know, Amanda and I know each other personally now, so she knows some of the details. But this weekend I had my own moment of, there was 2 years now, and I realized this, and she actually helped point this out to me. But 2 years, I have been living like a hermit. Since COVID, I haven't really gone and explored life. I have not done anything with my life. I admit this, because I have health issues. So it's like, don't go out because COVID will get you. Okay, fine. So, and I didn't want to play, and I couldn't get the shot. And here we go, all these things. Then I finally, a couple weeks ago, took the mask off and went out and to a coffee shop. And then this weekend I went big, and there was something I was looking to do, but wasn't going to get it. And I lost, because this is what happens to us. We get lost in the moment of, I want what I want. I want it to happen now. And I don't see the bigger image of what's going on. And the funny thing is, because we're talking metaphysical anyway, I had shared that video about the candle, and this came to me last night. It's like the day before this candle I lit was going crazy outside of the jar. And I couldn't understand why the flame was so high. And somebody told me that's because they're asking you to push through your boundaries, your limits. And that really hit home, because this weekend, when I didn't do what I wanted to do, I lost the fact that I was actually out by myself, out of my comfort zone in a huge way with no net, and taking a risk in all sorts of ways. And when I didn't get exactly how I wanted it to work out at first, it crushed me.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you step back and you start unpacking, you kind of start seeing the bigger picture, and not to detract from what you were saying, because for me, for what I think for you is what's gonna happen is you're gonna build it bigger. And not only that, you've also discovered that you have time to pursue your other passion, which is music.
Yes.
So that's a huge gift, and we don't always see it because we look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, I've lost everything." And
Yeah.
where does life begin? I mean, I went through the grief with losing the husband, and it's like, it this is a moment. This weekend would have been great to have him with me, and he was, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
And it's,
yeah.
so, the other thing I want to touch on is the fact that you were like, you knew the day before Mother's Day, that something was off. You knew it. And when my mom died, the day before my mom died, I knew. I knew intuitively and instinctively that something was going to happen. I knew this was it. This wasn't just an idle threat this time. This was real. This is not a drill. And my first husband was like, "Oh, no, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. She'll be fine. She's just threatening again." I'm like, "No." And when the phone rang the next morning, just like there's no missing it. So it's kind of like you have to listen to that intuition of, you have to.
I think that's the biggest thing that this has taught me is to really trust my intuition and to fight through the ego, fight through people's projections. Because, I've had people go, oh, well, ha ha ha, they're not around. Look at I'm the bad bitch. And I'm like, you don't know what spirit has in store. And my store is still open.
Well, yeah, I wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're still online. So, and I was gracious to find a production space so quickly and be able to, I mean, there were so many hours that, our volunteer that has been helping us, that she busted her butt and helped us to clean. We had to clean smoke off of so many things, but I'm so grateful because everything that we thought we had lost, guess what? With work,
You didn't. And then that's the huge thing. It's like, sometimes what we think we lost, we actually gained something out of it. And we don't always see that. I hear a kitty.
yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Card? Come on. Isis is always like, she wants to be apart. What's going
It's
on, Mom?
okay. I think I have that shirt.
Do you?
Not that that matters. I think I have that shirt. But I don't know. I mean, when you look at it, it's like, then the big question everybody has is, well, why did it have to happen now? And the truth is, there's divine timing there, whether we admit it or not. There is divine timing. There is a moment when you think all hope is lost, and suddenly,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, seriously, like it is all divine timing because if it would have happened before or after, I don't know where I would have been. I don't know how I would have taken it. Um, and honestly, it's riding the wave.
Mhm.
It's really being in the moment. And that's where it's hard because you don't want to feel horrible. Like, because spiritually, okay, I get it. Logically, I get it. Spiritually, my spirit, furious.
And you feel like the Ace of Swords or Eight of Swords, because it's like, I'm bound, I'm blindfolded. Why this happened to me? I don't know. I'm hostage. Why am I a hostage? What did I do what did I do to deserve this?
Yeah, I use the analogy like the phoenix.
Hmm.
The phoenix has always been something of mine that I've been drawn to. I've been like, okay. And it's, you know, that mythological, the phoenix knows towards the end of its life when it's got to catch on fire. And that's a painful process. It's
Hmm.
quick, but it's painful. And that's what it's been. It's been painful, but it's been healing at the same time.
Well, and for both you and I know that we've both been going through personal metamorphosis, personal healing, digging into childhood trauma and really facing it. And I mean,
Yeah,
that's something that a lot of people don't want to do. And unfortunately, with Pluto retrograde and Saturn retrograde and da 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 da, da, it's all kind of making us, it's holding up a mirror going, are you looking at who you are really, your shadow, not the guys that you put in front of you, and put out for the world?
absolutely. Well, it's been funny even with this episode. Like I was like, I was gonna go put makeup on and everything, and I'm like, no, you get to see the real me. You get to see everything. I mean, I can't be as vulnerable as what I can be right now. And it's like, what do I say? What do I do? And I'm like, just speak from the heart. I mean, that's really what we can do, especially in times like in metamorphical changes like this. Um, you just have to be you have to be honest. And sometimes you have to just like that heart on the sleeve and just say what you feel and what you need. And that's the best therapy that you can have.
Well, and I think, going along the lines, yes, I have makeup on, but um the fact of the matter is we put so much, and I've talked many a times on the show about this, about labels. We put so many labels on how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to act, who we're supposed to be. And personally, that this weekend was something major that I was dealing with for months, because my hair doesn't look like it did a long time ago. I am not as skinny. I am older. I have wrinkles, and I got advice from how many different people, like, well, you should get a wig. Oh, you should do this. And the truth of the matter is, when I look back at that moment when it really mattered, it didn't matter at all. And I think that's the problem. We get so trapped in what society is telling us. I mean, now there's there's skincare cream for the menopausal woman. Seriously, it's advertised this way. And it's like, okay, I understand that your body changes, but why can't we have wrinkles? Why do we have to go inject botulism into our face?
Yeah. Mhm. I think that's where it's like, why don't we just change the way we think, our
Mhm.
mindset, bring in that joy because it's really living in that joy and that happiness and just being even in that youthful energy.
Mhm.
That's what keeps us young. And
Mhm.
you know what? I'd rather have the lines.
Mhm.
I'd rather have, you know, my hair's not as thick as what it used to be. I'm like, and I'm only 38, and I'm like, yeah, I'm changing. It's okay. I
But
mean, how I had a friend send me a meme of Jamie Lee Curtis.
Mm.
I thought it was absolutely beautiful
Yeah.
that literally she looked her age.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I admire women in Hollywood that look like Dame Judi Dench and Helen Mirren.
Mm-hmm.
They're not scared to be who they are, and they're very proud and very much in your face saying, fuck you. If you don't like me, go kiss my ass.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If we can go into this, aging bit, and these little memes or whatever you want to call them. It's not really memes. It's the women over 40 shouldn't wear this. Go fuck yourself. You know what? If I want to run around in a bikini with my rolls showing, and the funny thing is, I look at the younger generation now, and they're designing swimsuits, bikinis for overweight people, and the younger generation isn't worried about hiding themselves. And geez, yeah, a few years ago, I mean, my arms have never been perfect, so I've always worn tank tops because of the heat. But now it's like, you know what? So what? I got a tattoo. I rock it. I get complimented on it. I got complimented on things, and it's like, okay, if I'm comfortable with me, and that's the thing, you have to be comfortable with yourself to pull it off. If you're not, but if you're comfortable.
It's the confidence. It's the confidence in being comfortable in our own skin. Like literally, I wear a bikini now, and I'm like, anybody want to tell me? I'll wear a crop top, and I'm like, I'm plus size. I don't really care. If you don't like it, turn the other way. Go F off. I used to never. I have lymphedema, so my legs are thicker, especially at the ankles. I have the ankles. I never wore shorts. Well, now I'm starting to wear shorts. So it's like, as you're getting comfortable, and I think that's part of this metamorphosis was really me owning who I was as a priestess, as a woman, as a mother, as all the labels that we put on ourselves. I literally, I'm like, this is me. This is just me. Imperfections and all. And the imperfections are usually the things that we're trying to cover up. And I'm like, man, this is just
Well, we're taught from a young age that we have to. I mean, let's go right to school. We're taught at school that you are supposed to look a certain way. You're supposed to be a certain way, especially going to, not so much my very early kindergarten and grammar school, but once I hit we had school uniforms, which I'm not going to knock it. It was great because you didn't have to worry about what you were going to wear. But it also puts you in a box, and you have to conform. You have to be this person. You have to be this student. You have to look this way. You're a girl. You should act this way. You should be all soft and nice. I remember being in 7th grade, and all the other girls in my class were all around gossiping. And I did play occasionally. I'd play tetherball, but I was either playing foursquare with the boys and one other girl, or tug of war, or some other sport.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to sit there and gossip. I wanted to play.
That's how I was. I would play basketball, play kickball, play tetherball. Oh my God, I was awesome at tetherball. And I could beat the crap out of the ball. It was great frustration. But yeah, and growing up, I was always like the tallest one for the longest time, which is funny because, now as an adult, I'm like 5'3", 5'4". So I'm short compared to a lot of people. But when I was a kid, I was the giant. Like, people were afraid of me. People were intimidated by me, especially boys. And I was just like, why?
I think it's because they just don't. You're not the norm, and that's the thing. It's like you're supposed to be a girl. You're supposed to be cute and pretty, and this is what was really the come to moment. Because so in 7th and 8th grade, I went to the same school, and by 7th grade, I'm still playing, or 8th grade, I'm still playing with the boys, and we have less boys in our class, and I'm still playing volleyball and softball and stuff. But while I'm playing foursquare one day, the only other girl who played foursquare decided, and she taught me how. She decided to challenge me. So she challenged me, and she was the head lead square. She was A and I was C, and she's challenged me, and I beat her. She ran away crying. And then she came back and threatened me after school. And I have never had anybody, all of a sudden, the boys that were friends with both of us just looked at her and said, if she's after school, so are we. And I'm just like, what? huh? What? It didn't make any sense to me because suddenly I was now the damsel, I guess. And then the other moment in 8th grade, because yes, once again, I'm the tomboy. I went to school. I had already been picked as queen. I went to the school. My hair was super greasy. I'm wearing hand-me-downs. So I'm going to the beauty parlor. I'm checking out of school and going to the beauty parlor. And by that evening, all the boys that were picking on me and playing with me and everything, when I showed up with the hair and makeup and the nice queen dress, they were just like, is that you? Is that really you? Yeah. And the guy who was king, who was regretting gonna have to hold my hand, I'm like, when we got to the very end of the ball, I'm like, I guess the worst part's coming up for you. It's like, no, actually, it's the best part. It's like cha-ching. So yeah, I mean, it was that Cinderella moment that we all want. But the truth of the matter is, was I really being authentic with me? I mean, I love that moment. I do. I treasure it. I was the queen of hearts. What is there not to treasure? But it took them looking at the guys and not looking at the real person I was. And that's a lesson that we are taught as children. We're not taught to accept the handicapped. We're not taught. If you're not perfect, then we shun away from you.
And that's the thing, like growing up, my mama, who was basically like my mom, she was always like, paint the barn, it's your generation, you know? And people are like, paint the barn, what do you mean? I go, think about it, it's makeup. It's vanity. It's making sure you look nice, you are presentable, and you know, where that does apply, you know, if I'm doing something really major, that's why I was like, oh, I need to get the makeup on. It's like, no, I'm just gonna come as me because the makeup was a big deal. Like for me, because of how I was raised, it was kind of like that Queen of Hearts moment that you had, where it's like, I need to dress up, I need to have that mask, and it's like, no, I don't.
Well, I mean, my grandmother, talking about grandmas, my grandma raised me too. And it was like she would never leave her house without her foundation and her lipstick. It didn't matter anything else. And if she would lift up my school skirt to pull my shirt down because it wasn't proper. And how dare I not iron something? And if I had a shirt, not even a crop top, but if my shirt did not cover my gut, even in my 30s, she was trying to pull it down. And I would deliberately lift it up. Like, just let me be. It's like, I am not your generation. I'm not going to go put a bouffant hairdo on. No, I don't want that. I am who I am. And I think that's where this weekend actually helped me get to that point really well.
I would have to agree with that. And then, you know, as we're talking about stuff like this, I've always been kind of that wild child, independent, kind of speak my mind, do my own thing, do what I want to do. And literally, it would drive my mama crazy. After I broke up with my first fiance, I didn't date anybody. I didn't want anybody. I wasn't going to settle. I knew what I wanted. And I had my girlfriends, right? And my roommate, who was one of my best friends, she was always with me. I'd take her to my grandparents' house. You know, my mama was like, Andy, she pulled me into the kitchen. She goes, are you gay? And I go, what? I'm like, no, mama. And she's like, no, you can tell me. And I was like, are you serious? I was like, no, she's just my roommate and she's one of my best friends. Why? Because you always bring her around. Yeah, because she lives with me. What's wrong? But it's like, if women are close, like I would hold some of my girlfriend's hands, like just to comfort or support. It's like, God forbid you show any emotion or support and closeness. Because God forbid, it might be taken the wrong way.
It's interesting because, there's 15 years between you and I think, roughly. Maybe a little bit more than that. So somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah. But actually, I think it's 17. But anyway, that's beside the point. The fact of the matter is, I could bring my friends around or I could stay over at my friend's house and nobody assumed that. Not until when the three of us, when I had other girl roommates now, of course, we got accused of having some wild parties, which we never did. We never had parties at all. We were happy just to sit down and write pen pal letters. But, this is what you get when you put three virgins in a As roommates, there's not going to be anything exciting anyway, except for really foolishness, which was what fun. But anyway, I digress. But, and we've talked about this and I've talked about it on the show, my dad, because of my roommate, me calling my roommate, and because my stepmother had taken pictures of me and my roommate drunk kissing, even though there were guys involved in that too, and she shamed me with my dad, my dad assumed. My dad assumed that, oh, well, this person must be your lover, the way you talk to them on the phone. Maybe I need a friend. Why does it have to be that this person is my lover? Because at the time, there was nothing like that going on. And that only happened briefly. And I've talked about it before and I own it now. But that moment, though, even that moment with those pictures were so much shame that I didn't even talk about it until my closest friends, until like the last 6 months. I refused to even own it because I didn't want to be labeled something that could be looked at as being disrespectful. Yeah. And I look at why my mom used a fake address for my high school. And I know that's bad, folks. I get it. It's wrong. Too late. It's done. But I look at why she did that. And it was because our neighborhood was not our neighborhood, but the school was very much African American. And she didn't want her little girl messing around with an African American boy. I know that 100%. And the funny thing is, my high school that she did send me to now made the national news because there's fathers going around there protecting the school because there's been riots and gang fights. So my whole point is, it's like your parents, they want you to be perfect, and you better not talk to somebody else that doesn't look like you or doesn't fit the demographic or dot. Fuck you.
Well, I think it's their limitations. They love us the best way that they can from their perspective and their views. And I know my children, they sometimes look at me like, why? Real? Yeah. Why? And they're, and I get it, and the biggest thing that I will say that I'm seeing from my grandparents, from me, even my mom and my dad, is that they did love me. May not have been what I needed, but honestly, it was to show me what I did need so I could be the best person that I was and be the best person that I can and help heal in that moment, and accept the good and the bad. Because trust me, I got my flaws and I got my pluses just like anybody else. So, go ahead. But I mean, literally, it's like that's been the biggest aha moment lately is just be compassionate with myself, be vulnerable, which was totally foreign to me because I was the one taking care of everybody else. I didn't have time to be vulnerable. I didn't have time to be seen. Go
ahead.
Now through all of this, it is time to be seen.
What I was going to say is that's the thing. It's like we were taught as children because we had to be in those parameters, we had to learn how to people please. We were taught to people please. It's like when you, and yes, and because I was a stepmom, I do get this. It's like you say something and you realize you're saying the exact same thing your parents said. And you're like, where did that come from? But we are taught, this is how the generational trauma passes and manifests because we're taught a certain way. And if we don't stop and face our own trauma and our own faults, then we're not going to evolve. And I always talk about this. It's like, you can't say that, okay, I went to therapy, everything's fine now, I'm never going to do that again. I have healed my trauma. No, you've healed it, but there will be a trigger that's going to trip your ass up because the universe likes to go, hey, wait a second. You think you got it down? Guess what? You ready? Let's try it again. Until you're not picking up on those same people, because it's very easy to go, let me go back to somebody from my past, a past friend that, I really liked having the good times we had. But ultimately the relationship or situation was toxic as crap. Mm-hmm. So you have to make a choice to close that door or block them and decide, do I want to relive this or do I want to move forward with who I am? I mean, you can go back and reminisce, that's fine, but if you think they've changed and you know better, your intuition is telling you no, then don't go back. And it's the same thing with parents and family. I mean, I live 1,000 miles away from my father. And it's better for me that way because while I love my dad and he is always going to be my dad, he has always been toxic.
Yeah. My father's the same. Like, I had an experience with my dad this past weekend. Spirits brought us together. We were not planning it. Literally saw him in a gas station parking lot. He was waiting to get a service call in. System was down, so he was just stuck sitting in his truck. And me and the kids were there, and I was like, "You want to go, to a bookstore?" Literally, we did. And the kids got to spend a little bit of time with him, and I did. It was enjoyable. We still had our space. I'm going to the occult section, and here he is, going to the, military history,
Yeah.
Because he was a Marine. I mean, my dad is who he is, and, we respect our differences, and I've seen the growth between us. But I also see that, he did cross, some boundaries. He apologized, which was huge. But it's kind of like, for me, it's like I have to keep that distance because it's like, as much as I love him, and I know he's trying, there has to be boundaries. And if you can't respect the boundaries, then I'm not going to sacrifice myself. I'm not going to harm myself just to be in space with him.
Right. And that's the best thing you can do is protect yourself because, I always hate it when my mom would tell me, "Oh, well, your dad loves you in his own way." What the hell does that even mean? I mean, it sounds like the biggest cop out. It's like, well, I really don't have an explanation, but I'm going to give you some kind of answer. That way it makes you feel better. But the truth of the matter is that statement is just confusing as hell because once again, we are taught parameters of this is what love should look like. Now we go, well, this is this person's love language. Okay, by them buying you stuff to compensate, and that's what my dad would do. My dad started buying me things to compensate, and it was like, okay, so this sounds so bad, but as a kid, you're like, okay, so how do I get what I want? All I have to do is ask Dad. That's it. And you learn that behavior, and it's not that I don't do that with anybody else, but I did it with my dad. My friend and I, we had found out a band was going to be down in New Orleans, and she's like, "Let's go see him." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "Might be able to get my dad to buy us tickets." "Oh, okay." So I went down there, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm in town to see some friends." "Oh, and guess what? I just found out there's a concert. Do you need some money for tickets?" "Yeah, actually."
Yeah.
Which is wrong. It is so wrong. But it's like the person he didn't give me what I needed otherwise.
Yeah. And we learn to manipulate, and we manipulate ourselves because we're taught to. We're taught to meet this person at that person's needs, even at the sacrifice of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's been like the biggest aha moment at this point. Literally this morning I was listening to something and I was like, oh, like seriously, like taking a step back and going, how true have I been? Like to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And really, my responsibility, like to control, because, during this process of losing the shop, that has been my biggest. I keep getting the cards of, when I'm sitting down with my spirits and everything, and we're talking about surrender, let go. And I'm like, huh? For someone who's been like conditioned to be in control, I'm looking at it and I'm just like, the only thing I'm in control of is me, how I react, what I think, and I can't go to the past. And that's when people get into shadow working and doing, healing trauma and all of this, it's kind of like, yes, that happened, but I can't stay there because guess what? I'm just going to create more of that into my future. So I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to heal it. I'm going to keep working on it. But I'm moving forward because it can really disrupt your mental health. It can really disrupt your emotional health. And it can really disrupt even the physical. Because eventually, if you're in an emotional disease or energetically any kind of disease, it's going to eventually manifest. So it's allowing to step back and kind of catch yourself and really realize I'm okay. My spirits have me. Work with them, and you're going to get what you want. And probably even better.
Yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But
you're like, thanks, Amanda.
Don't freaking have a meltdown at 2:00 in the morning.
Well, guys, you get a show.
And thank goodness it was a private Instagram account, not the public one. Anyway, but this all actually sitting here, I do have an epiphany, and I'm going to own this because I never own it. You know me personally, and talking about the manipulation factor with the dad, buying things, and then I've talked about in the past my past childhood trauma with my teachers lining up people to throw shit away from me, and the little girl having all her shit packed up. And then I sit here as I'm about to go through this massive change because I do feel like this weekend was a major shift in my life. And I'm going to own it. My house is a fucking mess. My house is got stuff from my husband's family, my husband, me, most of the kid stuff is gone now. But we would buy things to make ourselves feel better. We were dealing with his parents' death. So we would buy things to make ourselves feel better. He starts dialysis. I go out and buy him a little Harlequin Funko Pop that looks like a nurse to make him feel good. Why? We're not kids. And this is coming from the wounded kid inside that's going, I need to fix this. I need to make it better. And how do I know this? Oh, well, the love language of my dad was to buy things. So if I buy something for him, he'll feel better. Or like when I was sick with the chicken pox when I was a kid, my mom brought me, a book, or I would have toys because I couldn't go outside and play because I was sick a lot. So it was like, here you go. You have all these things. And the truth of the matter is now that I'm sitting here trying to dig out of my house because it's a mess. It's hoarder's light. I'm going to say I'm not, and everybody's like, oh, yes, all the reveals I've done in this damn show. Anyway, but it's a life lesson because it's like, what do I really need in my life? What makes my life work? What makes me happy? And honestly, things don't always do that. And dare I say, sitting in my hotel, being able to look out and see Lake Michigan and be in the city instead of the small town I live in was very freeing. And it does give me a wake-up call that I don't want to be here. But the problem is when you get to a situation like this, and because you have that childhood trauma of that teacher with the kids and all the judgment, it's hard when you have to sit there and go, I actually need help to do this. Because then you're so worried that somebody's going to come in and go, so they're smiling at me, but they're judging.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part here. It's like, I've had friends say, oh, well, I can come help you. And it's like, yeah, but you're my friend and you may not be my friend after we go through this. So I don't want to jeopardize that. So it's like, you have to find an option. You have to find an opportunity. And that's where it's tricky because it's like, how do you vet the people that are strangers that come in? So there's just...
I think it's a little bit easier when it's strangers because, we don't give a fuck language, but literally we don't care. We don't. When it's our friends and when it's somebody that we care about, we're risking them to see all the ugly when we truly let them in. And it's like, do you really want them to, like, you're scared because you don't, like, are they going to fully accept me?
Right.
Don't accept, really do accept you and understand, and I'll tell you this, You know, you never know who you're inspiring and who you're not, because we learn from one another. And, you know, I have a really incredible guitar teacher. I've started playing guitar since the shop and everything. And it's kind of like, you know, she thanked me yesterday at our lesson. She was like, you helped me to see not everybody learns from hearing. Sometimes students have sight. And I'm actually right now, because of everything that I've been through and going back through the trauma, it's triggered me to be more visual than audio. So, you know, we inspire. And sometimes, and this is the hard part, especially with hoarding, and my mother's like my mother is like she's horrible. My mother is a horrible hoarder. And I go, why are you holding on to this? What are the things that are you holding on to? The things that you think is your worth. And that's not in your case. But for her, that is. Because she had my grandparents' stuff. She even still had my ex-stepdad's stuff. And it's like, with that, you are allowing yourself to see the vulnerable parts of you that you've been hiding.
Yeah. But you like this little thing?
Uh-huh.
My dad gave me that when I was a little girl.
Aww.
Why the hell do I still have it? And why was I able to pull it off my desk? That's the other question.
I mean, we're in the middle of this. So ask yourself, what is it that I'm still holding on to this?
Because that was one thing he gave me when he got back from a trip, and it was out of pure love. That's why. And that's like, you know, now this, I'll be honest. Why do I have this booba? Because we used to joke, John and I, that he looked like a booba. He was bald and he was a little plump and he farted. And so he was a booba. So in the very, you know, so that's why that's there. So I have a reason. It's like, if you can actually, if that brings some joy to me that he's still here with me.
Oh, yeah.
But there's so many other things that you can look around and go, well, why do I have this? And it's not, yes. And I find myself when I'm going through boxes, it was weird because I went through this box a couple of weeks ago, 4 boxes, and I had loaded up the car, and there was this one glass that caught my eye. It had the steering wheel from a boat on there, and I can't think of what it's properly called, so shoot me. But I couldn't think of what it was called, or I couldn't. I put it in the box. I put it into the car, and then it was like I found myself pulling over before I went to the thrift store and pulling it out, because it's like, okay, this isn't ready to go. I don't know why. I don't remember it. I don't know if it was maybe John's parents. I have no idea where it came from, but it was like, you need to keep this. And so when spirit tells me something silly like that to pull something out, then I do. But other the times it's like, I'm getting to the point because it's like, oh, well, this should have value. I should be able to sell it. And it gets to the point where it's like, is your time worth selling this for $1, for $2? It's like, no, just load it in the car and get rid of it.
Honestly, being around my mom, I've watched the hoarding, like especially to her extent. It's the refusal to change and adding with the depression. It's being stuck in the past, refusing to change and let go. And I want to help them, but until they're ready, you know this more than anybody. Until they're ready, you can't.
Right. I mean,
I've watched you like shift and thrive, and I'm like, yes, go, because I'm really excited to see where this is going, you know.
But you've also called me and said, and you're not the only one, that this house is holding me back. And the funny thing is, I wrote a piece almost 20 years ago called The Tomb, and it was about when I left my first husband, when we put everything in storage in Indiana, and I kept paying for it. I paid for this thing for 10 years. 10 years. And I lived up here and he's in Texas and I'm paying for it. And my dad, of course, is like, you could have bought everything over, you know, for what you spent. Okay, fine. And yes, most of it did go away. But I went through it and it was very cathartic because it was like, there were things in there that I found that were like, oh, wow, I forgot this. But then there are other things that were painful. And, you know, there's many things. And even recently, I think I told you I found my mom's video with her suicide thing. And it's like, this is going, and even finding those letters from her writing her to my stepfather. It was just like, you could see, and these are where the gifts come in. These are where the gifts, because like those letters to my stepfather, I saw her desperation of how she was looking so far outside of herself for validation. And I remember when we lived in Carpentersville, there was another time John and I were going to the garage, and I found all these postcards and stuff from my mom. And my mom is telling me, so I'm a 10th grader. She's writing in the letter. She's like, I hope everything's going well. Please take care of your grandmother. Please make sure you're doing all of this. And then love you. And I stopped when I read the letter, because it's like, you were asking a 10-year-old or a 10th grader, so 15-year-old, to take care of my grandmother. You were putting all this responsibility on me already. And I mean, I know it's worse nowadays. Some kids don't even have the luxury of having their parents around because they're both working all the time.
Yeah.
So I know and that's the thing, for each of us, our trauma may seem magnetized. And I have friends that'll tell me, I can't believe you went through all that. But the fact of the matter is, I survived. And it wasn't that. When you are living it, this is normal. You don't think it's outlandish. You don't think it's over the top. It's your life. You know nothing different. And for me, I went from having the quintessential perfect childhood to having a shit show. Now that will fuck with your head and your value. And I don't think we ever realized that. And one of my biggest things was, I didn't want to get a divorce because I didn't want to put my kids through that. Well, I had 2 stepkids, and I did put them through that. And I hate that I did that. I do. But it was also self-preservation. And that's the thing. We're taught at a young age to get involved with somebody, to fall in love, to get married at a young age, have kids. We're still trying to figure out who the fuck we are. And if we're damaged, what are we doing by having kids early?
That's what my guides told me. I wanted kids like as soon as possible. I wanted to be that 20-year-old with her baby and everything. I was going to repeat cycles. I was going to repeat cycles of my family. And I didn't have my first, and my guides were very specific. You have, they told me, 2 boys and a girl before you're 30. And I was 26 at the time. I was like, how in the world? They told me in a dream. Sure enough, I had Gabriel at 28. I had Cheyenne at 29. And at 30, I had Griffin. And I was going to be turning 31 in July, but I was still 30. And I was like, and it's like, if we listen, they will tell us, especially if it's something like that. But it's like, I wasn't ready yet. And I kept asking, why am I not having kids yet? Why have I not been, on my own? Why am I not finding the right guy? And they're like, because you're emotionally not there.
Right. I remember at 19 going to a reader, and excuse me. And at this point in my life, I'm thinking, I'm going to be the badass rock star. I'm going to be a bass player touring the world. I'm going to rock this place. It's going to be awesome. And I go to this reader, and she tells me, that's not happening. She seems with kids or a kid, and not traveling the world, but settling down. And yeah. And not to get into any kind of medication, because that could be detrimental. Okay, fine. And I mean medication as in parties. So sure enough, fast forward 2 years, and I'm now living with somebody that's got 2 kids. And the bass playing dream has gone out the window. I'm no longer in a band. And yeah, and it's like, sometimes even though we have the best laid plans, spirit's like, wait a second, you need to evolve before you get there. We all want to go from A to Z, but we have to hit these other little milestones first.
Absolutely. Honestly, my spiritual path, I've always been open. I've always had my spiritual path. And when I started studying real hardcore, because my parents wouldn't let me study until I moved out. So at 18, here I am moving out. I'm studying witchcraft fully, studying tarot fully, excelling, just kind of like when you know you're on the right path, it just everything falls into place. And literally at 21, when I'm sitting there, I'm like, how do I do this professionally? I'm really good at it. How can I do it? Lands in your lap.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you know, my mentor, who I really have been studying with in the temple, when I was 18, beginning my studies, his books would fall out at me.
Wow.
Like they would just fall off the shelf. And I'd look at him going, okay, I see you. I'm just not ready yet. Fast forward to 2009, where I met him. One of the first people he met when he was down in Birmingham. And I was just like, hi. And he goes, hi. And of course, he had to go to the bathroom. But afterwards, after one of his classes, and I had a copper pendulum. And I felt like to give it to him. I was like, no, this is my favorite. No. They're like, you'll get one back. I go up and I go, I don't know why, but I'm being led to give this to you. It's my favorite pendulum, but I need to give it up. And he goes, thank you so much. Copper is my element.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's his element, like he connects with. And at the time, he was in his beginning of doing his publishing company and setting up the temple where it can go online. So I knew this person. I knew he was meant in my life. And then he was like, I was having friends going, you need to write your book. You need to write your book. I still haven't written my book, but I heard it's coming. So literally he goes, I go, well, I thought music was my path. I wanted to be the singer. I wanted to be the dancer. I wanted to entertain. And he goes, sometimes he goes, I thought that too. And he wanted to be the rock star. Tell me. He was like in the law part of the music business. He had to deal with artists and he had to, and he goes, I'm so glad.
Well, I mean,
mm-hmm. And I'm like, now looking back at everything that I've been through, I'm like, I'm so glad.
I look at this because I always wanted to be famous since I was a kid. That was one thing. It's like, I want to be famous. I want to be Shirley MacLaine, which, she reads cards or, so I was like, oh, I guess I did become Shirley MacLaine in a way. I did get to see her live, do her one woman show, which was cool. I wish I wouldn't have been so chicken shit and ass or something, but that's beside the point. But I wanted to be that rock star just like you. And it's like, when I look back at my life, it's like, even if I would have pursued that, there would have been such a narrow line to walk. And it's funny because I do explore that in my books because, the main female character, she has her own issues with addiction. And it's like, I never really had that. I chose not to have that. I mean, even because I look at when I hurt my back, the pain management doctor's like, oh, well, you need to take 3 Flexeril a day. You need to take 4 Vicodin a day. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll be drooling and I'm not going to have a quality of life. So I'd rather just be in pain. I know enough about my body that that's not going to work for me. So I live in pain, and that's not a great place to be. But when you can focus still and you can live your dream through your words and your writing, and you get to be the big persona. And I've had so many incidences in my life where I've had that moment of being the rock star, from being in a limo and having fans chase you because they're confused, or standing in a skybox while they light up the audience because they want the audience to sing along. And it's like, you're the one that's on stage because you're in the skybox. And, there's moments like that you can't, you get the feeling, you get the understanding, you get the power of it. And yeah, I've played on stage a couple of times. And there's a drug to it. There is, because you are so hyped up to it. But the problem is you fed off that love and that connection. And then all of a sudden you go back to your hotel room and there's nothing there unless you want comfort for the night, but there's not really there. And I mean, I think that's where the rock star mystique, there's a lot of problems with it because people look at it, well, the rock star is either checking out groupies, or they're alone in their hotel, or they're doing substances, or they got the fans that are getting in their face screaming, going, oh my God, I can't believe I met you. And then there's the other people that just kind of are average and they talk to them about real life. They talk to them about TV. They talk to them about, it doesn't have to be a sexual encounter. It doesn't have to be anything more than a real conversation. And I've been fortunate to have that with several people.
Yep.
And the thing is, I know for a fact that being a real person to them will endear you more than ever sitting there going, oh my God, or let's go fuck. Yeah. Because they're going to remember you. And I know that for a fact.
Yes. And that's the thing, is a lot of people in the high spotlights, they're just normal people.
Mm-hmm.
Why could they remember, like me, you, whoever? It's because they A, see your life, and B, you treat them like a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
You do. Mm-hmm. And that's really what they crave, because that's what they are. A lot of people put these, like Johnny Depp or whoever, on the pedestal. And it's like, no, they go fart, they burp, they poop. I mean, they're just like us. Well, they make mistakes.
Right.
They have their addictions. They have their traumas. And, it's how we handle it, and can we handle it, and allowing that to, I think in many ways, society has done a disservice and glamorized it and glamorized everything. And I'm kind of leading into something else a little bit, but they make it a norm to say that they're above us, and they're not above us. They're on our level, if we can see it. But why do you think most celebrities just intertwine in their circles? Because guess what? Nobody really gets what they go through unless you pay attention to go, I know exactly what they're going through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but what I was also going to get at is I saw this reel yesterday about this girl who, they do this with sex. They do this with everything. For women especially, and I think this is what it boils down to, is as a woman, we're forced to have more idealizations, whether it's fame, whether it's sex, whatever it is. It's always about the man,
mm-hmm.
and that they're the superiority, again, elevating. And I'm like, no. One of the biggest things I found is, and I think this is another reason why, like, the stars and celebrities, when you treat them like a normal being, is all they want is a connection.
Mm-hmm.
All they want is that real, that vulnerability that you can just be.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get that, they notice that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fact is, I've realized throughout my 30-something years doing this, talking to people, talking to celebrities and stuff, that as long as you find some common ground, it's like when I met Joseph Morgan from the Vampire Diaries, or not, well, he wasn't the Vampire Diaries, but the originals. I was going to a vampire convention, and I knew every single fan was going to be bringing something from the Vampire Diaries. So I went online and I looked on Internet Movie Database, and I found a movie that he was in. It was a bad B movie, but I got it. I ordered it, and I'm like, I'll get him to sign it. And yes, I watched it beforehand just in case.
Yeah.
And what did they skip me? It got me a moment of him looking down going, this gun, I don't know why they have me on the cover with a gun in my hand, because I never hold a gun in the whole movie. So he goes off on this whole story about the marketing principle, and I said something, he's like, it's a bad movie. It's a really bad movie. Don't even try to sugarcoat it. But the fact of the matter is, it stood out because it wasn't the vampire thing.
Yes.
It was different. And I think that's the thing. It's like, if you can, and I'm not saying, oh, if you want to meet a celebrity, do this. It's not about that. You have to you can't fake that either. You can't fake it. I mean, because you don't know what people look at celebrities. Well, they can't be in a bad mood. They're so pretentious. Maybe they're having a fucking bad day. You ever had a bad day? Imagine you having your crappiest day, and somebody's like, oh my God, you're such and such. Can I have a picture?
Yeah, that's why
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's why I will never approach a celebrity if I see them up unless I get led to. It's just like let them be. Let
Unless an elevator door opens.
Sorry guys, inside joke. Well, that was an opportunity that opened your ways. Anyway,
one door opens.
No. But yeah, I mean, it's the normalcy. We want connection. I mean, it doesn't matter who we are, what we do. We want a connection. We want real. We want, and sometimes we don't know we want real until we're in the middle of it.
True. And I want to say something because you were talking about your coach, and the fact of the matter is your coach is telling you how good you are and everything else. And you respect them, and I don't want to say you idolize them, but there is still a little bit, because it's not an idolization of like, oh my God, it's more of an idolization like, wow, okay, you get me, you've done this. And something that I did recently, and this is somebody who helped inspire one of my books. I actually was able to hand that book to them, and that was something major, because I had a dream where this person came to me and was like, when are you writing my book? And I just was like, yeah, right, whatever, dude. I'm writing something else. Go away. And then yet I was able to follow through and actually hand it to him. And that was, and seeing the reaction of when I said I wrote it, and they were like, you wrote it. I mean, seeing the smile, it was like, okay, that it was rewarding. And that's the thing. It's like, it's not so much the idolization, it's the acknowledgement.
Yes. Like, I love my guitar teacher. I love her. Like, she is she played with some incredible artists. She's a great, phenomenal teacher. And, when I'm sitting there and she's finally, finding my sweet spot on how I'm learning, and all of a sudden she's just like, I find out from her mom, which is her assistant, and she's like, she wants to play a duet with you. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
And I'm like, yay, yes. I don't even hesitate on the option, because I'm just like, I love her, as a person. And when you start getting to those layers and you start getting onto to see, it's pretty cool. When you get past the facade of who your image is, and we all have an image one way or another,
Oh, yeah.
Because I had people, they would call the shop and they would call the business line and oh my God, I love your YouTube. I love da-da-da. It's like, okay, I'm just me. It's not that big of a deal, but to somebody, you don't realize who you affect and how your story affects. And I don't really like doing interviews, but you know what? I was like, we were having a good conversation yesterday. You're like, we can talk about this. I go, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's that connection and the beauty of it. And especially during transformations and times of grieving and times of transforming, you need that more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Have that, and to have that connection and to be a part of something.
And that's the thing. I think that we, especially after COVID, we all became so detached. We all became so alienated that, everybody else was, the odd thing for me was everybody else was in lockdown, hardcore lockdown. And I was still free about, because I had to take him to dialysis. I still had to go to the grocery store. So I didn't have my lockdown until after he was gone. And so I spent my grief in lockdown, and that's not necessarily the healthiest thing to do, but it also made me face me. And that was a gift all in itself, because it would have been very easy for me to go, okay, I'm just going to get the house cleaned out. I'm going to sell a house and I'm going to just move on. But instead, I've sat here now with the albatross and faced myself. And that's a gift in itself. Because had I not faced myself, I don't think I would have been able to go downtown and do what I did this weekend. I don't think I would have been able to stay in a hotel by myself and been comfortable. Granted, I was talking to people via phone, but it's still, you're still doing it by yourself.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is we don't know how strong we are until we are going through those dark moments when we are grieving, when we are moving forward. And you're seeing that, you know what, I can do this again. And I'll do it better and I'll do it bigger. And it's allowing, you know, you to really find that belief in yourself. Because it's easy to lose sight when you're in the midst of everything. When you're in the spotlight, when everything is good. You the darkness, you know, there's a saying that I've always led to, which is, you know, in the darkness you find the light. And in the light, you have to see the darkness. Because there's always that balance that has to come through. And I think that's part of transformation. It's going, okay, this still resonates with me. This doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's really digging in and being honest with ourselves and allowing what needs to fall away.
Yeah. And I want to parlay off of that, or I'll add a little bit to it, is the fact that sometimes we put those parameters on ourselves that, well, a dream that I had a long time ago, I can't have now. It's over. I can't follow that. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes you can go off course, off your path, and sometimes, somehow, you'll find your way right back on that freaking path.
Exactly. Like I thought my music was done. I really didn't think. I sang, but now I'm flipping to not just being a singer now and being playing the guitar. And the guitar is a physical instrument. I don't know if a lot of, especially the acoustic. So it's not easy.
Mm-mm.
But if you can master that, and that's why I chose the acoustic guitar, because it's like, if I can master that, I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But I still like, she's like, she has no problem telling me, she goes, you're in kindergarten. I'm like, yeah, I'm just the beginning. Trust me.
But you have to start somewhere. And it's like you telling me last night, well, you need to play your bass. And it's like, yeah, I found myself, I didn't do it last night. And I find myself today going, yeah, you really do need to get that damn bass out of the hallway and play it. Because then it's like, well, it's not tuned. It doesn't matter if it's not tuned. You're not going to plug it in. You're just going to play it. So don't even freaking matter. Because my tuner is somewhere else and something. That's the nightmare of this house. I don't know where my songbook is. I don't know where anything is. So I'll have to go to YouTube and look up something that I want to play and learn how to play it there.
But what's beautiful is you can find a tuner on the phone. You can find a tuner. You don't need items.
I don't think I have a cord. I have a cord to plug into my laptop, but I don't think I have a cord to plug into my amp that I know where is handy. I don't even know where my guitar strap is. This is the problem. Somehow my bass guitar stuff got disassembled to all over the house in the last 2 moves. And so, yeah, I have to I know where my guitar is, which is good. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where the rest of it is. And part of me really does want to play again because it was fun and I did enjoy doing it. And it's something that I've denied myself.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's an interesting thing is, as women, we get into a relationship and we don't have to do it, but somehow we get into a relationship and we try to morph into somebody that will appease them.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know why I don't, it's honestly, I feel like that scared little girl inside is all like, I want you to love me. You've got to love me. That people pleasing and the emotionally, like just that father figure being gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that little girl's like, I want you to love me. Love me. I'll do whatever you want. And that's usually what happens. And then that's when the resentment comes in, and that's when the anger comes in, and they're going, "What did I do?
I didn't do anything. I didn't. Yeah."
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't know, and we're not communicating because we're taught, don't rock the boat, don't mess things up, and it's like No, speak up, communicate. And guess what? A guy in his attention span, don't be mad if they start playing with the phone. Do they need to focus? Yes, they do. They need to really be looking. But I'm going to tell you, people, and especially with technology these days, looking in the eye,
It's a
it's like
lost form.
it is a lost form, but it's so needed because when we're talking to one another and looking each other in the eye, guess what? We're connected.
That is always I've always been a weird girl, always.
Uh huh.
Because all my friends would be like in high school and stuff, look at that guy's butt. It's so cute. And I'm just like, what? What? And I'm like, give me their eyes, dude. I want to look
Yes.
in their eyes because the eyes, if your eyes can draw me in and I don't want to say rock my world, but if I can look at you and there's a connection. The first guy I really dated, we were in a band together and we worked in the same place, so I would go see him every day. And when I would go into the liquor store where he worked, his blue eyes would light up and he'd say my nickname and it'd be like, oh, now, if somebody's going to do that now, it's like, I'm not going to be it's not going to be catnip for me as much. Well, maybe for certain people, but it's not going to be catnip for me right now. I mean, you got to go a pretty high bar for it to be catnip. But the fact is, at 54, it's kind of going along the lines of, okay, I know what I want in a relationship. I know what I will do in a relationship. And I understand that at my age, yes, I'm not going to find somebody that's in perfect health, and that's fine. I've been there, done that. I've already taken care of somebody. I get it. But the difference is if you can find a partner that respects you and you respect them, and then you grow together and you share experiences. And I don't want to say, okay, because I never watched Smallville, but John loves Smallville. So it was like, he introduced me to Smallville. Now, this is where the thing is. If you can find stuff like that where they show you something and you enjoy it, that's not necessarily morphing. And, like he would watch certain things that I couldn't stand watching. So you go on and you watch, I'm going to go right. That's where the maturity in a relationship comes. Because otherwise, it's like, I remember the first husband, he's like, okay, I'm going to watch bowling or golf. So there we are sitting in the living room watching this, and I'm just bored out of my damn mind. And it's like, but this was also a person that did not respect me because my writing was a Barbie doll fantasy, but he never read any of it. And then my second husband is like, hey, I'm living vicariously through this dude. I like this dude. So, I mean, this is the thing. You have to look at yourself. You have to respect yourself, respect your boundaries, and be willing to experience life with them, but also own yourself and have them appreciate what they have in you.
Yes. And I think that's so vital. Like, I'm learning a lot because I didn't have that. Like, even with my grandparents, the best relationship I really saw,
Yeah.
um, they didn't talk to one another. They sat and watched TV, whatever, and they would budget, and then they would play card games every once in a while. But I never saw them have like deep, intimate conversations. I never saw them, normally the conversations I'd see was bickering and fighting. And, I'm like, oh, you
Yeah.
know. So, I'm not gonna lie, I do fight in front of my children, but I think I showed them, hey, we can work things out. And they go, oh, yeah. And even like with them, like I may lose my shit with them. And then all of a sudden I'm like, do you understand why? you know, and talking to them, going, I don't treat them, I try not to treat them like an adult because they're not. And they can't always regulate. So my daughter is very sensitive and she'll sit there and cry. I've learned not to tell her to quit crying. I've just let her cry or try to go, why are you crying?
Hmm.
No, let's sit down, let's talk. And it's trying to get her to relate and go, what she's feeling is not wrong or she shouldn't be ashamed of it. But it's being aware of going, okay, what's going on? Why are you still crying? When I wasn't even trying to be. And I mean, I think literally, and it's her not wanting to disappoint me.
Right.
You're gonna disappoint me. It's okay. You're gonna make mistakes.
Well, see, I think that's important what you were saying about a couple of things there. I think it's important what you were saying, the fact that you fight in front of your kids. I mean, I know some people are like, what? Fact of the matter is my parents never fought until when they fought, the final time they fought and I witnessed it. I mean, the thing is, you're going from, you think you have the perfect quintessential childhood to seeing, the bomb go off, and it's like, it doesn't add up. It doesn't compute. And then you, as a child, turn around and say, did I do it? Did I make this happen? And that was a long problem for me for many of my childhood years. And it's like, because my dad had asked, so what happened? I'll tell you when you're older. And then my mom is, of course, painting out her story, which is not really fully truthful, but it's vilifying my father, which she didn't get what she wanted out of that. But anyway, so that doesn't help. And I even look back to and how this goes into the future is when I get with my first husband, I never fought with him. I never fought with him even when I left. We didn't fight until we were 1,000, 1,500 miles away from each other on the phone. Then we fought. And fast forward to the second marriage, and I learned that, okay, we can fight. And I know, especially because somebody has health issues, they start lashing out because at their body, but they're going to lash out at you. And so you have to be grown up enough to say, this isn't about me. This goes back to the celebrity having a bad day. This isn't about me. I'm going to walk away. I will come back, not necessarily with the celebrity, but with your relationship. I'm going to come back and I'll talk to you when you're rational, instead of being rash. And the truth is, that's where the beauty is, because the person has had time to reconcile what they were lashing out about. But you can't, and I don't want to bring this up, but you brought Johnny Depp up. You can't do the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. And I mean, some of us have heard the audio tapes. You can't do that. If you're consistently going after your partner and you are fighting with your partner and you won't let them, and they're trying to walk away and you're like, you're not man enough. Fuck you. I'm trying to be a better person. And that's the thing. We always look at, well, my needs aren't being met. You're not listening to me. You're being batshit crazy in this moment. And I'm not speaking to anybody in particular, but you're being batshit crazy. We're not going to have a rational conversation. And what's going to happen is we're going to say things that's going to be hurtful. That can't be unsaid. So it's better just to walk away.
And I think that's where a fine line is, like, whenever we're having a fight or we're grieving or whatever, we have to take that moment sometimes and not just deal with it head on. You do have to take a step back. I find out most of the time I do have to take a step back to get out of my emotion and to really go, why are we fighting? Or why am I dealing with what I'm dealing with? Oh, it's this. But it's also letting go of the imperfections and allowing us to be messy. That's the thing, is we're always taught, like, it has to be this way and it has to be that way. And it's like, no, it doesn't. No. We're meant to be just, we're all a little crazy in our own minds, in our own ways. It doesn't have to be so perfect. And I think perfectionism is where it boils to people pleasing, it boils to this, and us not being able to be ourselves and not being able to be authentic in ourselves and putting somebody above us. And I'm like, there's nothing, nobody is above us. We are equal. We are all equal. And I think that's why, children get it. And why we learn so much from children is because, guess what? They're connected to source.
Mm-hmm.
They see the beauty. It's when they have that disconnection because of whatever that, things get. Sorry.
Yeah, I have an Apple. I have a computer and my phone. Yeah, and it'll ring, and it's like, dude, come on. This is live. Well, not live, but this is.
So, that's what I was just trying, like, the perfectionism, and it's a mask. That's the mask that we all hold if we keep it up.
Well, let's look at the Victoria's Secrets thing for a minute. Victoria's Secrets has sold us this image, and it was brought to you by a man. this image of boobs and an ass, and you better look like a supermodel, and you better show up in the bedroom looking all hot and pretty and everything else. And now, because there was such a backlash because of a documentary, now they're trying to do, oh, we're all about real women. Oh, fuck yourself. I haven't bought a bra from you since I couldn't fit into it. Yeah, I think the highest they went was a D cup, maybe a double D. And after I hit that, it was like, forget that shit. I can't wear anything here anyway. And the fact is, let's be honest, their bra sizes, even with the double D, it was quadra boob city. So it was like,
it's the truth. I mean, I worked for Victoria's Secret for a minute, and I worked at the high scale. Like I was in a ritzy area, and all these women would come in. They had their boob jobs, and I mean, plastic surgery is each to their own. It's kind of like, you know, your abortion and everything. It's your choice. I think as women, we need to have our choices. Whatever makes you feel better. Okay. These women would come in and they had no modesty. They were just like here, and sometimes you didn't want to see them. Like they were just getting like approved for a real bra again after surgery, and I'm like, don't show those off, honey. Let them heal before I see anything. And I mean, it is unrealistic, the sizes and they're not always comfortable.
No, I mean, being a woman with real, and I can share something funny. One of my first auditions I did in New Orleans was for a botched plastic surgery claim for. I was supposed to sit there, and part of the ad was, I have breast implants. I'm like, oh, great. So if I get this and then I actually get a career out of this, everybody's going to think mine are fake. No, they're not. But it was just one of those things where it's like, I was mortified. But the fact is, once again, is it making you feel better, or do you feel the need that society has put upon you that you should be well endowed? Because I remember at 26, my doctor asked me, do they bother you? Do they hurt your neck or back? And I'm like, no, it's fine, everything. Okay, I should have listened to her back in the day, because she wanted to get me a reduction. And I'm like, no. And now it's like, maybe I should have done that. Because why do you want to, nobody thinks about that. Guys don't think about that. They don't realize what it's like carrying 2 cantaloupes around your neck all the time for 50 or 40 years. They don't realize that. And I remember I had a male doctor actually ask me when I asked him about a breast reduction. He's like, well, why do you want to mess up with your fun bags? Why do you want to get rid of your fun bags?
What?
Yeah. And John was in the room too, and it was just like, so we got in the car afterwards, and I'm like, I can't believe, granted, we knew him pretty well, the doctor, we had seen him for a long time, but still, that was inappropriate. And yeah, fun bags.
I mean, I don't like, I've always been busty. I remember being a little girl, and I was probably about 3 or 4. I saw Dolly Parton. I loved Dolly Parton. And I wanted to be just like her, boobs and all. Well, I got it. Okay, I'm curvy, all the way around, and always have been. And it was always frustrating when I was younger and I was thinner. And I still get it to this day, where guys can't keep their eyes. That they wouldn't look at me. They wouldn't look at my eyes. They wouldn't look at my face. They couldn't see anything.
Exactly. Exactly. They're like this, and you're like, hi, up here. I did that a couple of times. It's like, and I've had women. I mean, there was a time in '89 I was skinnier. I would wear a halter dress with a push-up bra. So I was already chesty, and my friends deliberately walked behind me to watch other women gawk, and then look at the women and tell them they're real.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, why? I mean, granted, yes, I was amplifying it because I felt confident, but still, why are you checking me out? Like, and it's not checking me out to go, wow, okay. It's checking out to give me that side eye.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think, and this is one of my biggest goals that I want to do, is like to have women change the view of women being against each other in the fucking competition. Because it's like, if we could help each other, we would kill it in this world.
I was in a hotel lobby Saturday night, and there was this big wedding to do. They were walking through and everything. And this one woman who was very dressed up, and this other one had an interesting dress on. but this one woman was looking at the other woman, and I could just see the condescension in her freaking eyes because it was the side eye, and she kept going, looking her up and down, and I'm just like, woman, get over your fucking self.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's like, okay, so we're going to get into a different topic. It's like, I have no problem complimenting a woman on a body, piece of clothing, hair, eyes. I don't care. If I can sit there, it does not mean I want to sleep with you, but I can sit there as another woman and go, you know what? You look good. Keep going. If we can compliment one another more instead of tearing each other down, that is phenomenal. And I think honestly, men have to do it the same because I mean, come on.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, men, it's not easy for them either. And I mean, seriously, like I didn't know it was a big deal. Like men worry about their penis size. I'm like, really? But I guess it's so different than
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. We are taught that you have to have certain things. You know, I don't want no short dick man. Hello, that was a song, remember? And I mean, the thing about it is, my generation, we didn't have while we had the preppy guys, we didn't have the guys that had to work out. You better look good. You better have that chiseled chest. You know, there's one of my friends that always calls that shit drama and a headache. Just like if a man is at the gym all the time, he ain't gonna have time for you. It's all drama and a headache. You know, because he's gonna be so into him, he ain't got time for you. And that's kind of the truth.
It is kind of the truth.
But we have made it, it's not just about women anymore. That society is now bringing the men along that you better make sure you look good because a woman's not going to want you. And you better not go bald because no. And now because of COVID, and this is from a dermatologist, and you and I have talked about this. Now because of COVID, she is seeing more patients with balding issues, and it's the stress. And the hairdresser I went to the other day told me she had COVID, and since she had COVID, her hair has started to fall out. So, you know, we maybe this is the universe's way of saying maybe we shouldn't be so fucking vain.
I think so. I mean, I think we need to accept each other. You know, we get older. We get saggy. We get thicker. I mean, that's the whole point of it. And it's like, do you want women or do you want girls? Because that's the thing. A woman in her power, a woman in her voice is scary because we don't hold back. We fight for what we want. And we try to uplift people. We uplift and want to make change. That's bottom line. Little girls or in that mentality,
they're insecure. And I mean, don't get me wrong. We can all be insecure. We all have our moments of insecurity. But I mean, here's a prime example. Okay, so not that you can see, I had a cyst on my hand. I had this hard lump. It started when I was in my late 20s. And I was mortified because I was like, oh God. So if a guy goes to hold my hand, he's going to feel this lump and he's going to be like, what the fuck is that? So I go to the doctor. The doctor's like, oh, well, it's a cyst. Let's try to break it. They try to drain it, try to break it, can't do it. All right, so we're going to cut it out. Okay, so this is me being so vain about this fucking lump in my hand. And so they cut it out. So then I get this keloid scar. And because after the surgery, they didn't cast it, the phone rang and I sat up on the hand that had surgery. And the next day it was swollen 3 times the size it should be. So now I have 3 surgeries later, total story. And they ended up in a cast eventually. The doctor fixed, I have no scar really, but I still have a lump in my hand because I have a bone spur now. So that was, if that's not vanity rolled into a big, when I used to have the nasty scar, I used to joke my kids when I went and saw them, my stepkids, I think Jessica was 16 and she's like, what happened to your hand? And I just smirked and I'm like, I got a knife fight. It's like, it's a better story than saying I was vain as shit, but I did tell her the truth. But I mean, that's the thing, vanity, we think, oh, well, we better look perfect and we better do this, but you don't know what's going to happen if you do that.
You don't. And I think, you know, for the longest time, we need to learn how to love who we are just as we are. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. Because without doing that, we're setting ourselves up for failure. We're setting ourselves up for depression, for anxiety. I mean, this is the thing. We have to see that we aren't perfect. Our worth is not here. Is it saying like, hey, don't shower, don't do this, don't take care of yourself?
That's taking care of yourself.
That's taking care of yourself. You know, me being vain and going, yep, I'm not a true blonde anymore. You know, I mean, it's just like it is what it is. But you know, I've had people criticize me going, oh, she wants to go blonde. And I'm like, you know what? Go suck it. I mean, seriously, if I choose to go blonde, I've been red. I've done almost everything except for like wild colors, but it's just like the only reason why I haven't is like I've heard it takes a toll on your hair, and I'm like bleaching does enough. So I'm like,
well, I mean, that's the thing. If you there's certain things you have to do to take care of yourself, and I sent you a picture this morning that we talked about. I mean, when I look at even though I know my clothes, I have lost weight. I didn't physically see because I see myself every day. But putting those two pictures together, it's like, yeah, okay, I do see what my doctor was telling me the other day. He's like, yeah, I see your face is more angular and stuff. It's like, I didn't get it. But looking at side by side comparison, you can see. And the thing is, did I do it for vanity? No, I did it because I needed to get healthy, and I still intend to get more healthy. It's not. Now, does that mean I'm on this strict diet and everything else? Hell no. But I'm doing it with grace. It didn't take me 5 minutes to put on the weight. It took me 10 years, if not longer. So it's going to have to come off slowly because it's bad for you to sit there and lose it quickly. So,
well, it's been very desirable.
mm-hmm. And I feel better. And it's like you have to do it. So,
I mean, for me, it's and exercise can be walking the dog. It's getting your movement. It can be dancing, turning on some music and just dancing for 15 minutes. It's whatever makes you release the stagnant energy.
But see, here's something I want to bring up because you're talking about dancing and it goes with singing. There's certain level when we are younger that we dance freely, we sing freely. We don't get it in our head that we can't do this. And at a certain point, whether you're with a partner or whatever, it's like it becomes a secret. You don't want to be. You don't want somebody walking in and catching you dancing. You don't want somebody to come in and hear you sing. Why not? Why do we do this?
Because it's something sacred to us. I think music and I think it's because we're being our authentic self. I mean, come on, moving your butt, shaking your butt, jumping up and down, swinging your arms around. It's kind of like you don't want people to see you be that free because it's a vulnerability of is somebody going to judge me? What if I hit the wrong note? It's no different. Like if you're performing and you mess up, you either let the crowd sing, or guess what? You just keep going.
Mm-hmm. Well, the very, very first time I was on stage playing bass, I played a note in the wrong. I played the wrong note. It was in the same arpeggio, so nobody else knew, but I certainly knew, and I took myself to task so hard afterwards. That goes back to that perfectionist thing. And I got lit that night. I was out with friends and my boyfriend, so it was fine. But I'm not proud of that moment. And why did I need to partake so hard? Because I didn't drink, but it was like, oh, I screwed up. And everybody's like, even my bandmates did not know that I screwed up, but I did.
Yeah.
Why do we do that?
Because we hold ourselves at such it's the perfectionism, really, honestly. I think when we want to be our best and we're taught to be like, go for it, be our best, and we get fixated, obsessed almost with what does that sound like? What is that? Because to me, it was like, as a singer, I would play something, a song, like teachers, how do you repeat songs over and over and over and over again? And I'm like, to get it right. I want to know the words. I want to know the pitches. I need to hear that. And he's just like, just listen to the song.
As a musician or a singer, you can't do that. I mean, me, it's like I will sit there and the bass will stand out more to me than most other things. And I will listen to the bass line. And I mean, I will re-listen to a song. Now, there's a couple of reasons. One, because yes, I'm dealing with the music. But the other reason is like if I'm writing and a song has hit a moment, then I have to put that bad boy on replay and just re-listen to it over and over because it has evoked that emotion.
Yes.
But the perfectionism, my first book, it's written as a journal. So when I put it out initially, I had a cursory check. I didn't pay anybody to edit it. And it was like, it's a journal. There's going to be problems. I don't write perfectly in my journal. This should be totally acceptable. Oh, no. Mm-mm. And so this book has been a bane of my existence while I love this book. And I have had it professionally edited. I've had it, which that had some errors in it. I've had it professionally formatted. But because I had to re-edit a professionally edited book, it changed the formatting of the book. So here I am getting ready to give my book to said person, and I find errors in it once again. And I'm like, you have two options here. You can hold the book and not give it to him, or you give it to him imperfect.
Yeah.
And it was like, guess what? He's getting the imperfect copy. Because I can't do anything other than what is done right there. I can miss the opportunity and go for perfection and run the risk of never being able to do this or run with it. And that's what I think we have to be more willing to do is we have to be more willing to embrace our imperfections.
Yes. Yes. I mean, honestly, there's a phrase called imperfectly imperfect. It's been one of my favorite phrases that I've used. And I've heard because it's like, yeah, we are. We just need to accept who we are and we're gonna make our mistakes. We're gonna, yesterday, normally I was playing my piece that I had to for my instructor, and I was just like, I messed up. But I kept going. It was just like, don't stop, don't get in your head. Because it's when we get in that head and get into that trap that we spiral. It's the sickness. That's what I like to call it. The imbalance starts. And it's like you have to come from the heart. And the heart, with all the emotions, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That is spirit. It's the good, bad, and ugly. And that's who we are. We're not machines.
Right. And you have to trust that somehow there's going to be somebody to catch you. I remember the first scene, my final scene I had to do for my acting class. And I fortunately had the teacher's assistant to be partnered with. So that was a very good help. And I flubbed my line. I said it improperly. I said one line improperly, but nobody in the freaking room knew it because she ad-libbed a line that fit right in there and just morphed her line slightly. So nobody knew it. And the fact is, there's divine timing. She caught me. And the thing is, I think if we actually look around us, there's more people willing to catch us. And I know some people are like, well, no, people are just rude. They're unsociable. They're going to cause us. Yes, that's true. But the people that are really meant for you in your life will be there to catch you.
Absolutely.
And support you.
That's a good point to bring up. And I think that's why, when we're talking about connection and all that, why it's so important. I can't tell you, I don't know. I'm so grateful for the people I have in my life, and that includes you.
Mm-hmm.
But that man in there, I'm so grateful for it because honestly, I don't know where I would be if I didn't have him, and his support. And I drive him crazy, and he drives me crazy, but that's part of the fun. And you know that being, and I'm just like, I know that's something you're craving right now in your part of your life is to have, that companionship eventually.
I want but it's like this, I do want that companionship again. I loved having the companionship, and it's like, but I don't want to settle either. I don't want just something random. I want something with meaning. And that's the thing. It's like people are like, well, you should start dating. Not really, it's not that I'm not ready to date. It's like I don't want to say quality over quantity, but I think maybe that's the motto in my life is I want quality over quantity. It's like I don't want just some random guy to just come into my life. I want somebody that's going to get me, and I want somebody that's going to respect me and not sit there and say my writing's a Barbie doll fantasy. I want somebody that's going to support me doing this, and that I can support them just equally doing what they do. Whatever they do is, if I can be there and be their support system, then awesome. That's what I want. And if that's too much to ask,
Forget it.
then I'll be alone for the rest of my life, I guess. But I think that I have to keep my standards where I want them and not just go, okay, well, I'm just going to give to whoever.
No, never settle. Never, 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 never.
No, and mind you, the universe sometimes presents somebody like, my dearly departed. But I also look back and go, I may have deviated from my path, but he taught me a lot of valuable lessons about myself and about love. And that's the thing I think I think people lose track of that when a relationship ends, whether it's divorce, death, whatever, they lose track of the fact that, especially when it's divorce, of any of the good times. They just want to call the person a motherfucker. They don't want to look at it and go, well, what did I get out of this? I actually grew from it. I learned about who I was.
That's one of the things I tell my clients when they come to me to do a reading or anything. It's like, do you see the good? Or are you just looking at the bad? Are you just looking at the good? Are you seeing all sides of the situation? Because if you don't look at the bad and you're in a relationship, do you need to get out of it? Can you make changes? If it's not changing, that's when you kind of need to evaluate. And then when you're ending something, is it all bad?
Right.
Because it's usually not. There's some really beautiful moments that you guys have. And it's allowing that to come through.
Well, and going back to your thing about is relationship changing, the fact is, I think that so many of us, we see a relationship as being toxic, and we don't want to get out of it. It's like, oh, well, I know what I have here. And is something going to be better? Is it really going to be better? So it's like, I want to get out of this relationship, and you sit there and you complain, but you don't do anything about it. You still sit, and it's because, well, my parents were that way, or this is that way, or this is I mean, it's like we have to, and the big trap about relationships that a lot of people fall into, especially women, I can change him. I'll change him. I'll make it better. And you and I have had this conversation many times. I mean, because my husband had a major heart issue, and he's like, well, I promise I'm not going to do this anymore. I'll change the way I eat. I'll change the way I do this. I'll change. And the changes happen for about 6 months. And then slowly but surely, we're back to where we were. And well, guess what? Now we're not back to anywhere because he's gone and I'm here. So the thing is, you as a woman, and even as a guy, I mean, because I shouldn't just say as a woman, but as a person, you have to realize whoever you decide to partner up with, guess what? They are who they are, especially as we get older. They are going to be who they are. And you're not going to have this magical feather and go, oh, they're going to change. Sure, we all change a little bit when we first get in a relationship. It's all that newness and all that excitement. But you have to understand that once you settle down, this is where the reality is. And this is what you have to work on and clear up and make sure that you are on the same page and that you're not sitting there going, I'm going to change him. I'm going to make him look like this. I mean, my first husband is like, I bought him cool clothes that wasn't in his normal comfort zone of what he wore because I wanted him to look cool. So I mean, but this is a 22-year-old girl who has no fucking clue.
Yep. I have learned that's been the biggest lesson is that, my husband, I mean, he is who he is. TJ is who he is. He's not going to change. I can't force him. And guess what? He can't do that to me. And it isn't until and that's where you have to understand that in partnership, it is a partnership. It's not one or the other. And sometimes the hardest part is watching your partner get stuck. And I can say I have done that. Trying to think. It's been a while. Like there's times because he's so used to being independent and just doing everything, and I'm independent. So you have two independent people, and it's like you kind of like it's where you have to work to be a couple. Like you have to learn how to communicate. And sometimes when you're used to being like the caregiver or you're used to being, communication is like the last thing you want to do. You just want to take action.
Well, and see, that's going to be the whole weird thing for me because, okay, the first marriage, yeah, I did that, and I wanted to go back to that. It's like instead of buying him new clothes, I really was in love with his kids. I admit that. I should have just said this isn't going to work. He's not who I need him to be. But we try to morph. But you made a very good point here. It's like I've been alone for 2 years now,
Mm-hmm.
so integrating somebody else into my life that's going to be a major change for me because it's like I've been this independent person.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to learn how to reintegrate people into your life and how to make that coupledom work.
Yes. And communication and trust are like the top things, and also knowing what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't need to be in a relationship.
No.
And it's not about looks. It's not about like, oh my God, because the right one will never come away.
Well, let's be honest. This whole oh my God, let's go fuck. That only lasts for so long. And then you just got to say no.
I mean, honestly, is that 5 to 15 minutes really worth it?
It's not worth it enough to make a decision about your life. But we've almost been talking for 2 hours, and I really should, we started off talking about this, and while it's been a wild conversation, we started talking off about your shop. So you still have a shop online?
Yes.
Three Crows Conjure.
We hand make our candles, literally from the melt of the wax to the end process. We charge them for the intentions that it's for whatever situation. We can also do custom made as well. We hand make our oils. We have organic herbs and resins. We have over 200. Some of them have been a little hard depending on the harvest season and the weather and crazy climate changes, but we're shifting to that. And then I am eventually going to be getting back in stock books that I use personally. And then eventually my goal is to get my classes up again. And I do reading services and root work services. So I am a root worker or a hoodoo practitioner, which is Southern Conjure. It's a branch of folk magic. And then I'm also a mambo in Haitian voodoo. I'm a mambo sequin, which is I'm a priestess, but I'm not like a high priestess in Haitian voodoo. And yeah, and I'm an initiate in the temple of witchcraft, and I've been studying witchcraft since I was 13. So this has kind of been an evolution of my path, and that's kind of what my story is. So,
and you left off. This is something we covered in the last podcast, which won't be to air. Is that you're a death doula as well?
Yes, I am. Yes. Working with death and working in the transition of life, it's a blessing. It's no different than bringing in and being a death or a birth doula because you're doing the exact same thing. It's just on the opposite side of life, and they're getting ready to go into a new journey. So
it's okay. Anybody that's watching on YouTube is gonna laugh. Everybody else is gonna be like, "What are you laughing at?" We just watched Baby Yoda walk by. That's all. Or not Baby Yoda. Excuse me, it's not Baby Yoda. How dare I say that? Oh, take my Star Wars card away from me now.
But yeah, being a death doula is, one of the gifts of being it. I'm a psychic medium, and then I wear a lot of hats. So done a lot of things. Been doing this for a long time, and I enjoy it. But I'm also enjoying kind of the new unfolding of everything, and hopefully in the next coming months that we'll find a store location. We are very New Orleans based, in what we do. So if you wonder, okay, what is she doing? What is the shop about? It's New Orleans style, with, you know, different branches. Our store was definitely, you know, we would get people from Louisiana. Oh my God, this reminds me of home. And it's like, wow, that means a lot to me when
Yeah.
I can get locals to say, it feels like home. I want to come back, you know? So, uh, but for me, my whole goal on having free clothes and teaching is to empower and to teach and to just give the best products that we can. I mean, high quality products. So that's what I do with my work. So
Well, that's important. And I mean, when you're doing it with love, that gives it more intention. So I'm glad we could wrap it into the store at the very end here. And I appreciate, I know it's been a wild conversation. We've covered a lot of stuff into our podcast, which isn't unlike mine normally, but I'm glad you came back and talked. So I thank you for your time. Is there anything you wanted to add before I shut the recording off?
honestly, I just want to say thank you and to know that whatever changes that you are going through, whether it's losing somebody, losing a relationship, whether it is, you will get through to the other side. And it's allowing yourself, what are the lessons within it? There's always lessons to learn. There's always new things to find about ourselves. Um, and also, it's a great time to release. We don't like to release. Sometimes it is in that time where we have to release.
Agreed. Agreed. So thank you. So yes, it was quite a long podcast, and yes, it's two friends BSing, kind of like when I have my other friend Sarah Martucci on, and even Servon. We end up talking quite a bit. So I think that we covered a lot of ground, a lot of interesting topics, and I think that if we actually sit down and look at who we are and be willing to face our traumas, we can learn to heal. And I mean, I'm very open about that. I'm not perfect, but I've also been willing to step into my power and make change. And that's right now where I am. As Amanda and I were talking, we both admit that it's a time to step up and to change our lives and to understand that we have to make changes and transform because there's other things coming into our life that are better. But that's the real push there. That's the hard sell because we have to look at our lives and say, we're worth it. We're worth the changes. And yes, there may be challenging times, but we have to do this. It's our calling, it's part of who we are. So, on that note, I hope you guys are following your dreams and your passion and willing to make the changes because right now, all of us are in a time of change. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can drop me an email at Donna, Dauna, at better2podcast.com. That's Donna at better2podcast.com. If you want to catch up on the show, you can definitely do that at our website, which is the better2podcast.com. So better2podcast.com. As always, our audio is done by Rich Zai of Third Ear Audio. And I hope you enjoyed the show. While it was a long one, there was a lot of information to be shared. So, on that note, whenever you listen, whether it's evening, weekend, morning, day, whatever, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye. The Better 2 podcast is mixed, edited, and produced by Rich Zai of Third Ear Audio Productions.